want to speak today about maybe the most important skill besides programming for programmers to work on. And I do want to stress this is a skill that you improve at, and it's brought to mind by a comment I recently received. I'm going to anonymize the source of this because he is not the first, he will not be the last. But out of, I think, nearly like 350,000 online course video students, it's a super common error that I've seen, and also out of the hundreds of game developers I've trained personally and directly, and even just looking back at my own history, it's been a common source of need for growth. And so the error, as stated by a person who reached out for help, was that I typed in the code exactly as follows, but whenever I move my mouse, the canvas, the paddle disappears. I even tried logging out the stuff. I get not a numbers. OMG, YTF is the paddle disappearing. Super confusing. It makes no sense. And of course, I ask for the code to look at. Even though the person says that it's exactly the same, I know that it's not exactly the same, because if it was, it would work. Machines are deterministic. For better and for worse, they do exactly what we tell them to do. And part of the growth of learning to program is getting used to the idea that if there is a problem, even if I haven't seen the problem that I have made yet, the error is very likely in what I've done. That there's still something to be found. And instead of approaching it from the idea of being unable to grasp that I've made a mistake or a typo someplace, we begin from the assumption that something I think is working can't be what's going on. We go back and we revisit our smallest assumptions of where could I have made a mistake, but I haven't seen it yet. I threw a couple of suggestions his way about, here's a couple things that sometimes people do around the area of code, but really I need to see your code to be able to help fix it. And sure enough, I got the code back, was able to point out, here is how I was able to figure out where the typo is and how to diagnose it in the future, because yes, there was in fact a typo. In more subjective fields, and I don't mean to suggest that these don't require talent or difficulty or mastery, but in softer fields, writing, art, music, someone's response to something could be navigated on something besides just pure cold objective, does it work or not. If it's good or not is dictated by what people think you want them to say, by how they think about you, by all these other soft factors, aura of celebrity or expectations or personal relationships and otherwise. But when it comes to coding, like many other areas of engineering, software engineering in this sense, but if the same thing's true if you're building rockets or model trains or some other activity as a hobby or as your profession, it works or it doesn't. The machine will do what you tell it to do, for better and for worse. And if it's not doing what you want it to do, well, then the only solution can be, what can I do from my end to fix it? And it begins from, again, the assumption that I must have made a mistake somewhere. Let me look at where I can change what I've done to fix it. This, I think, has a common root in programming communities as a best expressed, and this is from Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. I think this is the, getting mixed up, Martin Hammond translation, but book 8, chapter, really paragraph 50. A bitter cucumber, throw it away. Brambles in the path, go around them. That is all you need, without going on to ask, so why are these things in the world anyway? Right? And this is where when we have problems in coding, we just have to get used to going around it. There was an obstacle in our way, we go around it. We can't wonder and worry about or fault ourselves or beat ourselves up. And I mentioned this in my response to this person because really, again, this is a skill to work on. It's not just a trait you have or don't have. Growing up when I was younger, I was a pretty impatient person. It was a thing I had to work on to be a better programmer than I was when I was younger, was patience and on just untangling it from a very practical lens of if you let it get to you, if you start to feel like it's a fault in yourself and you made a mistake and you're wrong, it clouds your thinking. It makes it harder to see clearly, to work through that troubleshooting process of finding where the problem was. And so it becomes much healthier to have this attitude of just working your way through it, untangle it step by step. What have I not checked yet? What else can I check? What can I check even earlier in the process or on a more granular level to find where the problem is? And this is also important because, of course, if you're doing programming, then really 100% of the time you're working with code that doesn't work. Unless you're just following a tutorial of pre-written stuff as a demonstration so you can copy someone else's end result of what to do, all of programming means that you're working with code that doesn't work yet, because as soon as it works, you move on to code that doesn't yet. The job is to work on code that's unfinished, incomplete, and broken. And as soon as it's fixed, that's no longer the code you're looking at. And so if you let yourself get aggravated and stirred up and dialed up and stressed out over seeing code that doesn't work and that you haven't solved yet, then you're going to associate programming with feeling stressed and unhappy 100% of the time. You're going to be far better off finding a way to kind of mellow out, if only from a practical level, let alone for your heart's health, because that's what's going to enable you to go back into it without feeling like you want to dread it, like you need to avoid it, like it's such an unpleasant experience to drag yourself through. It's very different from when you hand in a paper in a classroom and see red marks handed back and feel like, I was supposed to have known that. I wasted the teacher's time. The errors we see back from the compiler, from the script interpreter, from the browser, from just the functionality not doing what we expect it to do, that is the process. That is programming. That is the work of doing it. Anyway, that's just what I thought I want to share. Of course, this Meditations quote from Marcus Aurelius, that was the Hammond translation. Of course, I do have a public modernization of that text because it's been an area that lots of quotes from have helped me as a programmer and just as a person navigating life. That's available completely free as an ebook at self-calm.com if you're interested in checking that out. There's an audiobook version with my productivity audiobook, Self-Command, but the ebook version is free there as TXT, ebook, PDF, Mobi, whatever other formats that are common. That's it for the day. Just want to give a little thought, share that in case it's useful to somebody out there, that this angle of attitude we bring to the code, right? It's not just that I do or don't have the skill, it's how you're thinking about it really can impact your ability to resolve it faster, with less stress, to fix more problems in a day in your code, to add more features in a week, in a month, in whatever interval you're giving yourself. Your thoughts aren't just incidental. It's not just something happening up here while you're doing the same stuff on the outside. It will affect your ability to do it. It'll cloud your thinking or it won't. It will distract you or it won't. It'll help keep your RAM free to dedicate more resources to thinking about and connecting all the parts of the problem together for yourself and what you might do next. Or it's getting chewed up on blaming yourself or blaming an instructor or blaming somebody else or blaming a teammate. None of that helps. None of that's going to make it work sooner, better, or faster. That's it for now. Catch you for the day. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.